Welcome to this video talking about if you're just getting into film photography, the things that you're going to make mistakes on and why that's okay, why it's okay to make these mistakes. So the first thing that a lot of people getting into film photography struggle with is choosing the right camera. Now there's a lot of right ways to do this and there's a lot of wrong ways to do this, but the thing to bear in mind is that if you've never used a film camera before, they can all seem very confusing. And basically all you're really looking for is that it works and that it's going to sort of cover what you do in terms of focal length and functionality. It doesn't really matter on make or model. You don't need to go for a high spec camera, so a camera that will give you the sharpest results or has been recommended by YouTubers, blah blah blah. You just need a camera that will work for you. It's a lot more personal than a lot of people will tell you. People will tell you that there is a right camera above all else, and that's strictly not true. What will work for one person will not work for another. So spending a bit of time figuring out what sort of photography you want to do, and then figuring out what kind of camera will work best for that situation. So there's no correct answer for that. The next thing to bear in mind is that when you do get a camera, that the majority of these film cameras that are being sold are at least 20-25 years old, and there will be things that could be wrong with them, they could be faulty, and that's due to the age. With more mechanical cameras, so cameras that rely more on gears and springs and clockwork essentially, they're going to be more reliable because if they're working, then the mechanism is working and they should be fine. The electronic cameras, if they're faulty, generally it's going to be much harder to get them repaired or to diagnose exactly what is going wrong with them. So for most people, starting with a mechanical camera is a better way to go, just for that reliability. But that being said, from a cost perspective, the electronic cameras are a lot cheaper, but then at the same time you're getting a lot more features. So you're generally going to have sort of autofocus, or you're going to have auto metering, automatic modes that will do everything for you, auto advance, things like that, and that will just make your life easier. You can focus on taking the picture in the first instance, and you don't have to think about getting exposure right or getting the picture sharp, things like that. If the camera's handling it, let the camera handle it. You don't need a fully mechanical camera unless you know you want a fully mechanical camera. The electronic ones, yes, they may be slightly less reliable, but they will still do a perfectly good job. So it's always worth looking at those as a counter option to the mechanical cameras, which have skyrocketed in price in the last 5-10 years because of their reliability. They are not necessarily the best cameras for you, and bear in mind that with most of those mechanical cameras, they only have a battery to power the light meter. Now the light meter will tell you what is correctly exposed, but at the same time the light meter can be very confusing. Every camera that has a light meter does it slightly differently generally, and some are better than others, and that will sort of get you to where you want to be in terms of exposure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will be correctly exposed if you don't understand the camera and don't know how to change the settings. Whereas with the electronic cameras, the camera is changing everything for you, so you don't need to sort of worry about changing it yourself, and you can rely on the camera to get the right exposure, because that was what it was designed to do. The next thing is going to be price. So just cost of everything generally. The thing to bear in mind with price, when everyone says that film photography is getting more expensive, yes, it is getting more expensive. Film photography is more expensive than it was 10-15 years ago. And that's true from cameras secondhand to films. There's a few main reasons. The resurgence in popularity of film cameras means that people have realised that these cameras still have value and can sell them for less than they would have paid originally, but more than they would have got 10 years ago. And if you can find cheaper cameras, that's fine, but when you find cheaper cameras, generally that means that chances are there could be something wrong with them, or alternatively the seller, there's no guarantee, or they haven't checked it properly, things like that. The next thing that is the film. So the film has got more expensive. Again, that's mainly due to demand. So demand has exceeded all expectation from where it was 10 years ago. No one thought that anyone would be buying this as much film as being sold now. So the price has gone up. But the counter to that is that although the price has gone up, the cost of shooting film is still significantly cheaper than most digital cameras still. You can find essentially a full frame camera that is a film camera that will autofocus, will autometer, will do everything for you, and will be perfectly adequate for a fraction of the cost of a new digital camera. Yes, it is going to be a different way of working, but it is worth bearing in mind that it takes a very long time to shoot enough film to have spent more than you would have spent on a digital camera. So although the film is expensive, you have to bear in mind that you're going to be extrapolating that over time. So although each roll may be, I don't know, 10, 15 pounds a roll, you would have to shoot 100 rolls before you would hit the limit of a digital camera. And you are getting differences with that, obviously. I'm not going to go into the differences between film versus digital, but if you want to shoot film, it is an investment, and it's sort of spreading the cost over a longer period of time. The last and potentially most important thing that will be an issue for most people when they get into film photography is exposure. So as I've said previously, using one of these more modern film cameras that has auto metering or automatic modes, things like that, that will make your life easier, but this isn't like digital. So with digital, you can set the camera to do everything and see the picture instantly. You know that it's doing the right thing. With film, obviously you have to shoot the whole roll and then develop it, and if you're using a mechanical camera or one that doesn't have automatic modes and you've messed up on the metering, you won't know until you've paid for that roll of film and paid to get it developed, which is frustrating. It's always frustrating, but you can learn from that. So you will learn a better way of shooting film. You will learn correct metering. You will learn how the camera works to your advantage. While I'm saying all this, I'm going to be putting up some of my very early film shots because I made tons of mistakes, and that's just part of it. Part of actually learning all of this is to make those mistakes. Once you've made those mistakes, you won't make them again. Trust me, you will not make those mistakes again. And the exposure, getting correct exposure for your film, is one of those big ones that I've seen countless people go out with disposable cameras and take a load of shots and then be disappointed by the final results because they're not designed, disposable cameras in particular aren't designed for that. They aren't designed for the fidelity that people want from film because they're so used to shooting with digital. And you have to give the film more of a chance to get it right. With digital, it's much easier to rescue an image. If you overexpose an image, chances are it's harder to get the information back. If you underexpose an image, you can get the information back from the digital file. With film, it's the other way around. So what I'd always recommend is if you're unsure about a camera, not necessarily disposable cameras, but any film camera that has some control, overexpose the film, because then at least you're capturing something and you can collect that data back. If you underexpose your film, you will get grainy, muddy images, which, although it will fit a certain style, isn't what people want most of the time, and that's what happens with these disposable cameras. They do a great job outdoors when there's enough light and generally the film is being overexposed, but as soon as you underexpose the film indoors and there's not enough light for the film, you end up with very shadowy images, and it's just not what people want, it's not what people expect. So shooting on film will force you to get exposure right. It will teach you that sort of the only way to get a shot you're happy with is to have a certain level of control over exposure. And yeah, the only way to really do that is to go out and make the mistake of underexposing a roll of film or not loading it properly, and you end up with sort of dragged frames, things like that. So I would highly recommend that if you're just getting into film photography, just do it. It seems and feels expensive at most times, but making those mistakes is one of the most important steps in film photography, because from those mistakes you will learn, and from all that information that you gather while learning, you will take better pictures. I've been shooting film for 6-7 years at this point, and I still make mistakes. Like, it happens, and that's fine. Everyone makes mistakes. People will only show you the pictures that came out correctly, if that makes sense. So shoot film by all means, but enjoy it while you're taking it, and then once you've got those images back and you've seen them all, if you're not happy with it, learn from those mistakes. Learn what went wrong and learn how to correct it in the future. And that's going to be the best way to learn anything in film photography. That's going to be the fastest way to learn it. It may be the most frustrating, but that's going to be the best way for you to learn it and get it stuck in your head so that you know it for next time. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know it was a little all at once, but thank you very much for watching it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll reply to most of the comments, so send those in. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.